Hi, I'm Claudia Hosky from Fed Insider, and on behalf of the George Washington University Center for Excellence in Public Leadership and ServiceNow, I'm pleased to welcome you to today's webinar on workplace well-being in government. Please type your questions and comments into the Q&A pod. If we don't get to them during today's webinar, we'll share with our speakers so they can follow up with you. Also take note of the Resources tab on the left side of your screen to download today's slides and other related resources. We offer live captioning for all of our webinars. To follow along with us today, please use the hyperlink under the Live Captioning or CART tab above the slides. We'll have the full transcript available in the next day or two. And to earn training credit for today's webinar, you'll need to answer all polling questions throughout. And now, let me turn over the reins to our moderator, Nichole Francis Reynolds from ServiceNow, to begin today's discussion. Nichole?
Thank you, Claudia. Hi, everyone. My name is Nichole Francis Reynolds, and I serve as the Vice President and Head of Global Government Relations for ServiceNow. I am delighted to serve as the moderator today about this critically important discussion entitled Workplace Wellbeing in Government, which is sponsored by ServiceNow and FedInsider.com. ServiceNow is a cloud company headquartered in Santa Clara, California, and has over 15,000 employees. Our mission is to make the world of work better for people. What makes ServiceNow so unique is that our platform, called the Now Platform, is a single cloud platform with one data model and one architecture, enabling speed, security, flexibility, and innovation. Our platform helps companies and governments manage their digital workflows across siloed organizations and systems by connecting them together in a seamless way to unlock productivity and improve experiences for both employees and customers. We work with over 300 federal government agencies and over 85% of Fortune 500 companies to help them deliver Michelin star experiences to employees and customers and constituents they serve. So on behalf of our amazing CEO, Bill McDermott, and General Counsel, Russ Elmer, and all of our employees, hello, and we are delighted to partner with Fed Insider to have this important discussion today. Today, we are joined by 4 powerhouse guests who are knee-deep in these issues, as they have been facing them for quite some time now. We are going to hear from them about challenges they have been facing, tools and resources they are employing to foster a more holistic workplace, and ways in which the private and public sector can work together to leverage innovative technologies to truly embrace the future of work. Let's face it, the future of work is now. Let's dig a little deeper and look at the impact, challenges, and considerations around managing and enabling our workforce that does not have access to their normal workspaces and resources. We are joined by Liz Gruchacz, who is the Director of the Office of Human Resources for the National Reconnaissance Office, also known as NRO. We are also joined by Jeanne Juliao, who is the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Office of the Director General, Bureau of Global Talent Mgmt for the U.S. Department of State. And finally, we are joined by Dawn Locke, the Acting Director of Education, Workforce, and Income Security for the U.S. Government Accountability Office, also known as GAO. Thank you all for joining us today. Liz, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about the mission of the Office of Human Resources within NRO and some of the programs under your purview.
Hi, Nichole. Thank you, and hello to everyone. Good afternoon. I appreciate the opportunity to participate and be here today. First, for those of you that may not know, the NRO develops, acquires, launches, and operates satellites. So we deliver advanced systems that provide collection to meet the country's intelligence needs. As the Director of the Office of Human Resources and the NRO's Chief Human Capital Officer, I lead the enterprise efforts to shape the workforce, so from hiring and staffing to retirement, really the full talent life cycle. And my office focuses on the strategies and the implementation to hiring, developing, and retaining top talent. We always say here that NRO's success has been possible due to the contributions of our talented and diverse workforce. And today, the NRO's workforce is comprised of members from both the intelligence community and the Department of Defense military personnel. We also have a really large private sector industry presence, and as you can imagine, we really benefit from that unique mix of ideas, experiences, and backgrounds of our blended and diverse workforce. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. That's important work, and we want to thank your employees and thank you for your leadership and all that you're doing, especially during these challenging times. Jeanne, tell us about what you're doing at the State Department.
Sure. Thanks for the opportunity to be with you all today. What an incredible, impressive group of panelists that we have, and I'm delighted to be a part of it. As you indicated, I'm a Deputy Assistant Secretary in the Bureau of Global Talent Management. Many agencies call it Human Resources or People Services. We call it Global Talent Management because we truly are a global organization. Our mission is to recruit, develop, and empower the world's premier diplomatic team in order to advance U.S. foreign policy goals. How we try and do that is by taking care of our people. We are the component of the organization that focuses on, as Liz was talking about, kind of cradle to grave, from initial recruitment all the way through retirement and every stage in between. Our people include foreign service personnel, civil service, locally employed staff and missions around the world, eligible family members who are our employees, and contractors as well. So Global Talent Management provides those services to all aspects of our personnel. Our commitment is to fulfilling of the department's mission, but also ensuring that the people, which are our greatest asset, have the tools and capabilities they need to do that on behalf of the American people, no matter where they're located, domestic or abroad. And that's GTM. To give you a sense of the numbers, we have approximately 50,000 locally employed staff across the globe. We have approximately 11,000 civil service staff and about 13,000 foreign service staff and a whole host of other contractors and things. So our standard workforce is about 75,000 plus our contract staff. And so it's a big mission, and we're what I think is a relatively small but mighty team, very committed to providing those services to all of our personnel. And back to you.
Thank you. And I can imagine that you all have played just a tremendous role and continue to play a big role with all this going on with the Olympics and those who are representing us over in Tokyo. And so thank you for that. And I'd imagine the NRO is involved in that somehow too. But thanks to all of your employees as well. Dawn, tell us about your role at GAO, the missions that you undertake, and the size of your workforce.
Sure thing. It's good to be joining all of you today. As your listeners may know, GAO is often called the Congressional Watchdog. It is a nonpartisan arm of Congress with about 3,200 employees. We are charged with providing fact-based information to help improve the performance of the government, to ensure transparency, and to help save money. And one interesting little tidbit is that our overall mission is government accountability, integrity, and reliability, and that mission results in a return of about $114 for every dollar spent on GAO. So it's a pretty good investment for the government. And I will say that as for my personal responsibilities, I oversee a portfolio that focuses on a national workforce. And what that means is we try to help Congress understand the workforce landscape, its changing needs, how to prepare workers to meet such needs, as well as issues related to inclusiveness and equity in the workplace. So that is how I'm involved in all of this. Thank you, Nichole.
Thank you, Dawn. All of you are engaging in some amazing work and have some tremendous responsibilities and really set the tone for the leadership and the tone of the workplace. So thanks for telling us about what you do and your responsibilities. Let's now level set in terms of the workforce, because a lot has changed over the past year. I know that, my husband and I have 2 young children, ages 7 and 9, and working from home has been at sometimes a blessing, and then it can be challenging. And thank God for technology, right? Dawn, tell us, how different is working at the GAO today compared to before the pandemic? Did you have to quickly embrace teleworking to keep your employees safe from exposure to COVID-19?
Well, Nichole, we had a very robust telework option in place. So although all of our employees went home, we did have the structure set up to where we could immediately come online and ensure that we were meeting our mission needs once we were quarantined. And I believe that although we had continuity of operations plans for our headquarters employees and the employees in our 11 field offices across the country, even more, I think it was our focus on people values that allowed us to be up and running as soon as we were quarantined. And it's those people values that is really the core tenet of GAO's mission. All of the work we do is rooted in ensuring our people feel valued and respected and treated fairly. And I mention this tenet because it really is a key reason why we already had the structure and the culture in place to allow us, again, to complete our mission while dealing with the pandemic. As I mentioned, we already had a robust and generous telework options available. We had flexible work schedules available, and even prior to the pandemic, we also had support such as in-house counseling services and weekly guided telemeditation and numerous wellness tools that give employees actionable ideas related to well-being. So really all of these built-in supports were helpful during the pandemic. But I will say that once faced with the quarantine, GAO took it even further. Although we had the flexible hours, we expanded them to evenings and weekends. We also provided 20 administrative hours per pay period so employees could tend to COVID-related issues like caring for dependents. In addition, we expanded our counseling and support services, and we deliberately intensified our communication, including everything from one-on-ones and daily notices to things like monthly town hall meetings with the executive committee to continually check in with our teammates and outline responses for the many questions being asked. So it really comes down to the fact that in order to be true to our people values and promote wellness, GAO ensures it is mindful of employee needs whether or not there is a pandemic, and that put us in a very solid place to immediately mitigate any additional issues that popped as a result of the quarantine.
That's fantastic. And what I heard from what you just shared is that communication has been critically important during this pandemic, and being nimble as an employer to address and alleviate the concerns and challenges that your employees have been facing has been critically important. And then I've also heard you say that people matter, and it's so good to hear that because as an employee, we need to hear that from our leadership. It makes us feel great, and the programs that you have employed, even on the weekends, speak volumes. Liz, tell us how NRO has responded to the pandemic. And look, we know that your teams must work with privileged and classified information. So how have you been able to move everyone to a teleworking footprint when the pandemic began?
Yeah, so let me start by saying that despite the pandemic, the NRO maintained our critical national security mission, all while protecting the health and safety of our people. So we were able to do that. There were members of the NRO team that worked remotely, while many others continued to work on site throughout our SCIFs, or sensitive compartmented information facilities, in order to perform mission critical requirements. And of course, those people followed social distancing and safety safety measures to keep them in the workforce. But that was really no small feat given all of the pandemic-related restrictions, our reduced staffing, and then other unexpected obstacles that we encountered, which affected normal operations during this challenging period. But again, despite all of those challenges, thanks to the incredible efforts of our people and our industry partners, the NRO's overhead systems continue to maintain at 100% capabilities throughout the period. So over time, as we saw more restrictions being lifted based on the declining case trends and increased vaccination rates that we were tracking along with everyone else, it allowed us to slowly bring more people back to the workforce and to increase our manning footprint. So many of the members of the workforce did move to a teleworking or remote footprint, and it first was challenging due to the classified nature of our intelligence mission, but we did quickly pivot to allow that flexibility to the workforce, and we set up on and adopted the DoD Commercial Virtual Remote Platform, or CVR, and that allowed our employees to work at the unclassified for official use only level from home. And we were able to provide tools to them through that, enabling virtual meetings, doing teleconferences, virtual town halls, that kind of thing for those that were physically distanced from us in the office. And while it was all something new, a key takeaway that we got from the pandemic experience is we definitely learned that there are pockets of work that can be done remotely while still protecting the information and avoiding CI risks. So back to you, Nichole.
Wow, thank you, Liz. So what I heard from you is that preparation and foresight is important, especially given the important national security work that the NRO does. I also heard that platforms matter, so the type of platform that you use has to be nimble, right? So that you can evolve and adjust as needed, so that the employees can have the software that they need to execute their roles, or to use the software that they've been using. Is that right?
Yes, that would be a good summary. Exactly.
So thanks for that, Liz. Jeanne, the Department of State is unique in government because much of your workforce exists outside of the DC headquarters. They work from embassies and other remote locations. When the pandemic struck, were all of your employees forced to begin teleworking, and how did that affect the employees who were, say, working overseas at an embassy already?
Thanks, Nichole. Certainly there's some interesting challenges when your folks are kind of as far flung as ours are. We have a few dozen locations domestically outside the Washington, D.C. area. We are represented in 180 countries and over 300 posts of assignment for our personnel. And so every location, be it domestic or overseas, is unique in that we needed to be thinking about what was happening in that location. So domestically, whether we were here in the Washington, D.C. area or Florida or California or New Hampshire or wherever we were located, we needed to think about what was happening on the ground in those areas. Overseas, every mission is unique, and we needed to take into consideration where were the numbers going up, where was infection rate at alarming rates. Number one, first and foremost, is always the safety and security of our people. And so that has to come first. Our mission priority to serve the American people obviously is the key component. That's why we're there. But we can't do that mission unless our people are safe and kept safe and healthy. And so, on a personal note, one of the posts that I served in overseas was in Italy, and I will forever in my eyes see the vision of the trucks in Bolzano, Italy, small, beautiful town in the mountains. where they were carrying away their dead. And it was heartbreaking to see what this picturesque town was going through. And at the same time, know that we had people in other parts of the world, New Zealand, for example, that had not yet been struck by such tragedy. And so what we had to do was look at what do people need where they are. And so that was a real challenge. In some places, we had folks still coming in, obviously, to the embassies, to the consulates, to the missions overseas, because there's still, vital mission-critical work that needs to be done, but really flexing to how can we use the resources and tools that are available to allow our folks to telework where there's infrastructure to do so, where there's security to do so. And so that infrastructure variation was something we really had to take a close look at and make sure that we got tools to people where they needed them. And again, those mission critical needs still needed to be performed. We still have American citizens all across the globe who have emergencies and need our help. And so that's what we had to focus on, was making sure that the people had the tools that needed to do those mission critical things, while also doing so in a safe environment. One of the things we also did was have what's called authorized departure. We wanted our folks who, particularly if they had underlying conditions that made them particularly susceptible, we gave them an opportunity to come back to the States on authorized departure to allow them to work from here, in some cases remotely, teleworking from the U.S., taking care of those things that could be taken care of remotely to the mission from here. So while still working for, say, post-Ouagadougou, they might have been doing that from right here in Washington, D.C. Obviously, our mission is really engagement. It's engagement with our overseas counterparts. It's engagement with our host country folks, and that has to sometimes take a back burner to when we can't do so safely. And domestically, we needed to continue our essential services. We needed to make sure people still got paid, and people, security forces contracts were still taken care of. And our medical services, we have a whole medical unit, so our medical services were still available. Our folks at Post rely upon our medical teams often is their only resource for medical care. So we had to try and make sure that all of those things were still happening. And in some cases, lots could be done via telework. In other cases, we had to do those kind of extraordinary things that Dawn was talking about, for example, of maybe having people come in at different hours, or what Liz was mentioning, where you have folks coming in at different times, different groups, different shifts, different components, to make sure people were able to do the jobs they needed to do in as safe an environment as we could. Back to you.
Wow. Just wow. Thank you, all of you, Jeanne, Dawn, and Liz, for those overviews. And so what we know is that we have a large telecommuting federal workforce who are experiencing burdens as well, in addition to the requirement of still functioning at our best, right? But what we don't think about are some of those challenges and burdens, and not to make light of this situation, but working from home, and I mentioned my children earlier, they don't understand that when I'm on a Zoom call, that I'm actually working. They think I'm talking to friends. I think that's a good sign about ServiceNow, because oftentimes they hear us laughing and they hear us working, but then they hear us laughing again, and we work hard and we play hard. But I also think about just childcare and schools, and as you mentioned, your employees work in shifts, right? And they need a break from time to time. Let's talk about that talent care. Jeanne, you touched a little bit on that, but do you want to add anything else about just the provisions that you're providing for your employees that need a much more nimble way of operating?
Sure, happy to. I can tell you that just before the pandemic began, actually, the fall before, we had been taking a really hard look at what are we doing to ensure that our folks have the tools that they need to be successful, both personally and professionally. And so we had started to look at all of the various things that we do as an organization to support our teams and our people, and realizing that we needed to do something to be more effective in delivering those services and those opportunities for wellness. And so we started what we call talent care. And I have to credit other agencies have all done things in this realm, and we were happy to go steal the best ideas that we could come upon. In particular, our colleagues, for example, at the Central Intelligence Agency, and they had a really great program of Thrive for their personnel, and we took a lot of their best practices, and some of our friends at USAID and other agencies, and we looked at what could we do to make we have lots of folks across the organization doing lots of different things, but what can we do to make it easier for people to access those resources? And so we Talent Care was born as a result of that, and it serves as a single touch point for our employees to access information on programs and policies that promote well-being, community, safety, workplace flexibilities. And we have a council that serves as a conduit, an advisory board for our department leadership, with our finger on the pulse, responsible for coordinating, developing, promoting initiatives based upon what our folks need. So we had some great services that were available. We have employee consultation services, for example, which can provide well-being and mental health services. We had what we call Work Life for You, which is a program that could provide emergency backup care, elder care options. We put out things like new parent guides, bring a child into this world, and whether that world is the globe or whether that world is your family or the State Department family can be a challenging thing, whether you are having a child of your own, fostering a child, adopting a child, etc. How do you go through all of the rigmarole that can be the bureaucratic process of having that child, for example, put on your order so you can take them to post? So putting out things like the new parent guide were just some of the things that we tried to put together in one central place. So now we have a central resource that has these 4 buckets: well-being, community, safety, and workplace flexibilities, where employees can go and click on the issue that they're interested in, whether it's death of an employee or family member overseas, or transitioning school-to-school resources, physical activity and nutrition, fostering resilience, training opportunities. So having been born just before the pandemic, really put our feet to the fire to get it up and rolling. And so we were able to launch our website, our intranet website, our website available to our folks right at the very beginning, March and April. And that really was a fortuitous timing. We had to kick it into gear a little faster than we expected, but we were able to do so. And that allowed us to be ready in the fall, after we'd all kind of gotten used to pandemic life a little bit, but looking at where were we going to be, where were we going to head, and switch to platforms and opportunities to deliver those services virtually. And one funny anecdote we do every October, we do our Talent Care Month. And one of our most popular things 2 years ago was what we called Pooches on the Patio. And we'd bring therapy dogs so that people could take a break in their day, go pet some animals, feel like they could step away from what can be a very stressful and hectic job. Well, last year was virtual, so we couldn't do Pooches on the Patio. So we did cats on camera, because if any of you have cats and you've been Zooming or Teams calls, for some reason, cats seem to be really, really engaged in those cameras. So those types of things to bring some community sense to our group, to our organization, but also to make sure that people could access the resources that they need. So that's what Talent Care is. And again, I credit all of the other organizations that do components like this because it is essential in order to support folks as they go through their day-to-day work, whether it's pandemic or otherwise. And we're really proud of Talent Care. Back to you, Nichole.
That's awesome. As you talk about pooches, we have a 15-year-old Shih Tzu Poodle mix, and I'm not sure if she's happy that we're still working from home or if she wants us to go back to work. I think she's realized that she can't bark and ask for treats while we're working. Can't take her out, nonstop just because we're home. But that's such a great idea that you all have employed there. Dawn, talk to us about some of the stresses that you're hearing about from your employees, and what are the challenges that they are facing? Are they similar to what Jeanne just referenced, and what sort of programs have you put in place to address them?
Well, Nichole, the challenges that we're hearing from our employees are similar to what we're hearing across the agencies and organizations that we talk with, and it'll be of no surprise to your listeners. Everyone has had stressors related to both their jobs and personal lives. On the job front, we've heard, for example, worries across the national workforce about whether the IT would function properly or whether there was enough connectivity at home. We've also heard worries about taking on more workload for those who couldn't work for various reasons. And of course, some of those organizations that did not have culture of telework already established, we heard concerns about whether they'd get as much out of their workforce when at home. And naturally coupled with the job concerns were the even more challenging personal issues. As you and your listeners know, across the nation, many workers face the challenges of caring for children or elderly parents, worries of their own mental and physical health or that of loved ones. And as you know, feelings of isolation arose, especially for those who live alone. So it has really been incumbent upon agencies to not be tone deaf to employee needs and to make a concerted effort to promote wellness, especially at this time. And that's where those people values that I mentioned earlier has played in and has helped GAO so critically get our folks up and running to meet our mission needs while ensuring the wellness of our employees. And should it be helpful to your listeners if they're interested in more of what GAO has found related to workplace wellness, they can Google GAO reviews of employee engagement or our reviews of the federal pandemic response, should that be helpful.
That's great. And Dawn, Jeanne mentioned as she before you spoke about the importance of having a centralized system, a centralized location where information can be accessed by their employees at the State Department. Have you found the same thing, that centralized software should be accessed by all?
Well, at GAO, we do. We absolutely, we have our internal technology that allows us to broadcast all of the information as it becomes available so that we have that transparency and everyone knows what is the latest decisions being made and the latest information related to the pandemic or not.
That's great. And then how about, as we talk about platforms, I've been hearing more and more about that. How important has it been, or is it, that you have a platform that is flexible, so that if you have to create a new program for your employees, that you have one that is flexible and gives you what you need so that you can build on it, or the company can build with you?
Well, I think flexibility is critical for any agency, and it just goes back to what Jeanne had mentioned earlier about meeting people's needs where they are. And so that flexibility, when it comes to your platform, when it comes to your technology, or when it comes to your policy, is essential for helping employees have what they need and experience that wellness at work.
And thank God for Fed Insider, right? To access information, to find out what the trends are and what's going on. And FedInsider.com has been a great resource for federal employees and companies that work with the federal government. Thanks for that, Dawn. Liz, how is your workforce divided up in terms of their age ranges? And do you find that different issues or stresses exist amongst the different age groups?
Yeah, I think it definitely, the different types of stress may vary by age groups, but there was definitely some universal stressors regardless of age groups. For the NRO, just over half of the workforce is age 40 years or older. And for the NRO cadre specifically, that's the portion of the workforce that's cadre, meaning they're assigned to the NRO permanently. Their age group range is 40 to 49, and as the largest of their population, and followed by the 30 to 39 age group. So at the NRO for cadre, we definitely have an opportunity to increase the 20 to 29 age group, which currently makes up a smaller portion of the workforce. And we're doing that through things like our student intern program, which potentially leads to full-time employment. So, I mean, related to COVID, generally speaking, the younger generation were likely better positioned and open to change and the use of different technology. And we saw their flexibility and willingness to embrace new technology and changes and shift their work patterns as we offered more distance learning opportunities and more remote working opportunities. On the contrary, and this was just a perception, I have no data to support this, but the older demographic groups tend to be, more reluctant to using some of those remote technologies. We're asking more frequent questions about how to do things, and we really believe that this was particularly pronounced because of our work across the IC, which has traditionally been a culture with minimal online presence or using unclassified systems. So that definitely explains a lot of the questions and concerns that people had. But we saw a lot of questions and desire for flexibility for working parents, which I know was already mentioned, across all the age groups, and then also universally people that had elder care issues or who had family members who were high risk or they themselves were high risk. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. That's amazing. I know that at ServiceNow, our Now platform became and continues to be a critical tool to help many of our customers meet these sorts of needs, whether it's federal agents or even in the private sector. You know, if you like basketball, particularly professional basketball, we helped the NBA and the WNBA manage their workflows in their bubble down in Orlando, and as a result of the great work that our platform provided, we are now their official workflow partner for both leagues. And as you mentioned, children and families, Disney Plus. It runs on our Now platform, and if you are trying to find a program, there's a chat bot that pops up, and it can sense that you need a little help finding Mulan or whatever your children want to watch in the moment. And so having that agility, especially during this time, our customers really need something that they can rely upon. And if you think about the vaccine and testing and tracing and signing up to get the vaccine and getting information about the vaccine, your employees at NRO and GAO and the State Department, need that sort of nimbleness. And we're just so grateful to have had and continue to have the opportunity to work with many of your agencies in providing those sorts of services. So let's talk a little bit about how to overcome many of these challenges that our employees have been facing. You've talked a lot about the programs you've employed and just the leadership that you have been executing and exhibiting to show your employees that we matter. When we talk about just broadband, that's kind of like the elephant in the room, right? When you mentioned, I think, Liz or Jeanne, you mentioned infrastructure. Broadband is infrastructure, and many employees live in rural parts of the country. Some live in, the inner city, where we're still talking about switching from, 4G to 5G. Let's talk about how to overcome some of these, especially in the workplace. We're talking about holistic well-being in the workplace. What does that mean? I know when my service, toggles between whether it's 4G or 5G, it can get frustrating. So, how do you define holistic well-being in the workplace, and what would you consider a healthy workplace? Liz, tell me some of the tools or techniques that you all are using at NRO to support well-being within the workplace.
Sure, and some of them Dawn and Jeanne have already mentioned, so I'll just emphasize some of them. We had an internal employee assistance program, which I heard one of them also say they did, to include things like delivering services for our teleworking employees that had telehealth type questions. That's what they offered. They also had people standing by to provide mental health counseling and financial counseling to help support the employee well-being. We offered resources just in general, where to go to look for answers for certain things, which was critical, or resources of who they could call if they wanted someone to talk to. We also found that giving employees the greatest possible flexibilities, which I also heard Jeanne and Dawn mention, was something important, letting them know that we would allow them to work flexible work schedules or outside of core hours, that kind of thing, to make up time if they needed to. And that helped to reduce overall stress levels. So we obviously couldn't take away stress that they were experiencing, but we think having them know that we were there working with them to accommodate helped to provide some relief of the stress that people were feeling. We just tried different things that we could to offer in terms of at the unclassified training. We offered more tradecraft and leadership type courses being available at the unclassified level. And I heard this mentioned as well. We just communicated as much as we could with our workforce. So we held regular virtual town halls, and we included senior leadership participation. We did Q&A sessions, almost on a weekly basis at the height of the pandemic on both the classified and unclassified side so that we can answer questions. A key person that we had always speaking to the workforce was our senior medical official to help keep the workforce informed and, just answer any questions from things they were seeing on the news. So that was really helpful. And we also communicated as much as we could on how we were mitigating health concerns in the workplace. So what safety and health measures were we taking in terms of social distancing, putting up barriers, that kind of thing. So those are some of the examples.
And what we haven't talked about, we've seen some statistics out there and just conversations about just domestic challenges in the workplace, right? And I do have this question that, are you able to still track what's happening, whether it's domestic issues at work or domestic issues at home? Do you have a system to monitor what's happening there? I know you mentioned mental health and programming for that, but are you seeing an uptick? What are your thoughts about that?
You mean an uptick in people asking that have mental health issues? I mean, we definitely saw an uptick in people seeking out people to help them that were mental health providers or counselors, just to help for how they could alleviate some of their stress or cope with some of their stress. Yeah, we definitely saw an uptick in that. In terms of monitoring at home, we did have a ability to connect at the unclassified level to home, but it was not the same connectivity that we would have if they were in the workplace.
Got it. Liz and Jeanne, do you have anything that you want to add about creating a more holistic workplace?
This is Jeanne. I'm happy to chime in. I think when you think about what holistic well-being in your workplace is, the way I see it, is that we give people the tools to be successful, both personally and professionally, and recognizing that one without the other is not holistic. So I think that one of the big expressions that is verboten in my book, and that is when we talk about the workplace now, and we talk about returning to work, I say, wait a minute, folks have been working really, really hard all 15 of these months or 17 of these months. And so what we need to focus on is returning to the workplace when one needs to be there, but providing resources and support so people can be successful personally and professionally. So to me, the whole concept of being holistic in your approach as an organization is to give those folks the tools, because that's how you become the employer of choice, right? That's how you ensure that you are recruiting great talent, that you're retaining that great talent, because you are affording opportunity within your workplace for both personal growth and success and professional growth and success. And that's really challenging when people have as many stressors, and both Dawn and Liz have talked about the same kinds of stressors our folks, and I would imagine everybody that's listening in, have faced, whether it's personal and family and health, or professional and trying to get your job done with, your dogs and your kids, and maybe technological challenges when a system crashes and you can't just call your IT folks to come over your shoulder and help you figure out the system because you're working from home. So all of those factors are stressors for our folks, just like everyone else's. And so it's really about creating an environment that gives people the resilience, not just to deal with the stress, but to overcome it. Instead of, bouncing back, it's bouncing forward. And that, to me, is what building a holistic well-being environment in a workplace is all about. Over.
And this is Dawn. I would echo everything that Liz and Jeanne have said. I mean, to me, having a work environment that maximizes productivity and fulfillment in all areas of an employee's life is key to that holistic wellness at the workplace. Just as a personal example, I enjoy my career. I enjoy the brood of kids I have at home. Added to that, my husband and I have elders in our family who need our attention, and we also are devoted to various service projects, and we love to travel and spend time with loved ones. And GAO has allowed me to be a whole, well-rounded individual in the aspects of my life that are important to me. And again, from my perspective, that is the essence of holistic well-being in the workplace.
Absolutely. Love that. I echo some of the same feelings. ServiceNow has just been a wonderful place to work, and just gives us the same thing, just the program opportunities, time off in the afternoon on Fridays. And unfortunately, I have not taken that time yet, but it gives us that chance to just pause and exhale from the multiple meetings that we've had during the day and looking at the screen all day, and just allowing us to spend more time with our families and go get the vaccine if we choose to do that, or go to vote, or whatever that is. And so all of those programs that you all have mentioned at the State Department, Jeanne, and NRO, Liz, and at GAO, Dawn, are critically important and really do help provide a holistic workplace, because we need to bring our best selves to work, right? And in order to do that, we need to have the tools and resources to do it. And technology is a huge driving factor. I saw one statistic that said that I think by 2023, enterprises will spend close to $7 trillion globally on digital transformation. And all these various programs that you all have described are provided digitally. Just imagine how much more we will be spending over the next several years, and how important it is that these platforms are safe, secure, versatile, nimble, et cetera. I know we have a few minutes left before we take some questions, but let's talk a little bit about just recruiting talent and getting them to stay. Liz, the government sometimes has trouble recruiting talent and getting them to stay for a traditional hire to retire career. Do you think that addressing workplace issues like the ones we're talking about today are a key to helping with those efforts?
Yes, I do. I definitely think that to recruit and to be able to be competitive for top talent and to retain your workforce, we need to be flexible and offer flexibilities to our employees. So I know at the NRO, we definitely try to offer opportunities for a meaningful career, things that I've already mentioned like employee well-being programs, flexible work arrangements, offering that, the federal benefit package of sick leave, annual leave, and wellness and assistance programs, things like that, and also staying competitive with salary and benefits, retirement plans. All of that, I think, comes into play. We're definitely a people-centric culture where we have core values of integrity, respect, and teamwork. That's definitely attractive to applicants and where people want to work. And then certainly is our rewarding mission, which is critical to national security. So I would say all of those things together are important and are factors for attracting and retaining people.
Absolutely, and I know our CEO, Bill McDermott, talks about the younger generation and how work won't be the same way that we've been accustomed to experiencing, where you're kind of at your desk and you get credit for being at your desk, before anybody else, or staying at your desk until 5 or 6 o'clock, or who can work the latest. It's really about efficiency. And while some young people are looking forward to this flexible opportunity to work from home, we have a new employee that started on our team in government relations who actually told me yesterday that he looks forward to going back to the office and seeing everyone and having that camaraderie. And I shared, even though I love being home with my husband and my kids, I look forward to going to work too. I think it will be more like a vacation. I've made more grilled cheeses every day and ravioli and spaghetti than I've cooked, I think, in my entire life. But to hear that from a young person who's looking forward to going back and being part of this holistic well-being, this holistic workplace that we have within ServiceNow is refreshing to hear. Who else has some interesting things to talk about in terms of fostering this environment of well-being? Dawn, how about you at GAO? Any metrics that you have that you'd like to share? How can you tell if the GAO has been successful in its efforts to promote a more holistic well-being in the workplace?
Yeah, Nichole, some organizations may believe that they can assess, their employee well-being through their mission performance measures. For example, if an agency is meeting or exceeding its performance targets, that could possibly be a sign that employees are engaged and able to work to meet goals. But I think, as we all know, performance metrics, especially if they're not specific to workplace well-being, are just really not enough. So I think the key to really knowing whether efforts are working when it comes to that workplace wellness is to simply ask. It's important to have a culture where managers are frequently checking in with their employees about how they are doing, and there also must be a real concerted effort to collect anonymous feedback to find out for sure. GAO, we've been meeting our performance targets during the pandemic, but it's GAO's employee experience survey that really speaks to the wellness of our teammates. For example, in 2020, as a result of this survey, GAO was rated the #1 best place to work for mid-sized agencies. So to us, that is an excellent indicator. But even then, as GAO does, we took it a step further than the annual surveys. We also instituted a COVID-19 pulse survey to help us understand staff experiences and assess how well GAO was supporting staff needs specifically during the pandemic. In addition to that, we did a whole separate survey for our interns and our new hires to better understand their needs and what we could tweak to help them excel during the quarantine. So really, Nichole, I think it's this feedback on workplace wellness and again, people values that tells us at GAO what efforts could use improvement and what efforts have been successful.
That's great to know. And, in the private sector, Fortune puts out a list of best places to work in the private sector, and ServiceNow has been listed as one of the best places to work for 2021, and I can certainly attest to that, having worked at ServiceNow almost 1 year. It's truly a great place to work. Dawn, you get the last word today before we move to questions. We've covered a lot of ground. Can you point out the top or key factors that contribute to a more healthy and holistic workplace? Well, we talked a little bit about that more at GAO, but how about Jeanne? Jeanne, well, let's do this. Jeanne, Dawn, sure, and Liz. So Jeanne at the State Department, Liz, NRO, and Dawn at GAO. You all will have the last word. So just tell us one factor that has really contributed to fostering a more healthy and holistic workplace.
I'll start. It's Jeanne. I think really it's all about communication, and I know both my colleagues Liz and Dawn mentioned this, that even if you have nothing new to tell people, to engage with people and communicate is vital. You may not have all the answers, or we can't solve everyone's problems every day, or necessarily give them what they need at every moment, but we can certainly provide as many tools and support as we can. But really the key is communication. If people feel as if they are being heard and they are being spoken to, and we are listening and we are engaging and we are doing based upon what we're hearing that people's needs are, I think that is the key to really fostering resilience within your community, really enhancing your ability to support your team. And it is, when we talk about the future of work is now, that is something we need to be doing every day, is just communicating with our teams.
And this is Liz. I definitely agree with that, and I would say being flexible and offering flexibility is something we've also already said. Not always doing things the way, one way because that's the way you've always done it. We definitely here pivoted and were flexible. We wanted to make sure to support work requirements, but we also cared and understood that taking care of family members was important and reduced overall stress levels and was something that we needed to offer for our workforce. Thank you.
And this is Dawn. I, of course, very much agree with Jeanne and Liz. Perhaps the one other piece that I'll mention and that I'll stress, because I think it's so critical to workplace wellness, and I don't think we've brought it up, but that is the power of gratitude. I will tell you guys, in my line of work, I get to go into a number of federal agencies each year and see firsthand just the thousands of men and women who are working so hard to ensure this nation prospers. And without a doubt in my mind, each agency's ability to carry out its mission really rises and falls with the well-being of those very same men and women. And so in that vein, since this will probably be the last time I'll talk to those federal employees listening to this podcast, I want to personally thank you for your service. As we end this discussion and all of you go back to the numerous responsibilities weighing on your shoulders, please know that Jeanne and Liz and we're just so very much appreciate your efforts. Thank you, Nichole.
No, you are welcome. Thank you so much for being available to do this. And as we wrap, I just want to reiterate some of these key words that all three of you mentioned. Leadership, clear communication. I mentioned being nimble. Platforms, having a flexible platform, a reliable platform. People matter. Preparation and foresight matter. Security, data, broadband, having a centralized system. Just showing employees that we matter. And recognizing that our families and all of that that goes along with it really matters. So I just want to thank, on behalf of ServiceNow, Fed Insider for joining forces with us, and thanks to all of you, Jeanne with State Department, Liz with NRO, and Dawn with GAO for being part of this. I will turn it over to Claudia at this point. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Nichole, and thank all of our speakers today for your insightful remarks on this very important topic. And for our audience, thank you for your participation. Training certificates will be emailed after the webinar ends, and remember to log back in the next day or two to download a copy of today's transcript. We have many webinars in the works, so be sure to visit fedinsider.com for dates and details. And while you're there, check out our podcast, Feds at the Edge. And with that, this is Fed Insider signing off.